So this is gonna be like another response to a client, but I know that there's a message that's gonna be within here that more people could use. So I'm just gonna put it out there. But I've been sitting here dwelling more on your last question on if the fraud has to do with a life insurance scam. And you know the Angels and Answers deck. You know it's only so descriptive, right? It's only so descriptive, and it kind of there's not a whole lot of yes or nos. There are yes and nos in the deck, but then it's a whole lot of it leads you down to more trains of thought, right? You know this one present. Oh, not this one. That's there's something more. Present. Why did I say present? 55 change. But look at the bouquet in her hands. It's like, well, it is like a present, is it not? But there's something better. You know, what would be better? You know, you asked about if it was a life insurance scam, if that was what the fraud was, right? But what would be greater? What would be better than a life insurance scam? So when we think about life insurance scams, that would you know that would be a big come up. But let's look deeper than just the 3D. Let's go into a different realm. Let's expand wider than that. Let's look at it more like a deeper. Well, what's deeper layers than that? It's more of a spiritual or inner layers, right? The 3D, yeah, life insurance scam. It it the monetary and this and that it could be right, but it could be something greater. Well the card says there's something better. What would be greater than that? Spiritual inheritances, things that money cannot buy. But things that money cannot buy, it's not up to them, whether or not they could. It's even if we say we go down the we go down that road and we say it was a life insurance scam, right? It won't. A life insurance scam will only get you things in the 3D, in the physical. You won't acquire things, gifts in the spirit, in the spirit realms. Those gifts that are bestowed upon us, they cannot be taken, right? But it could be both could be used in the same way, in the form of, is it possible a life insurance scam was done? Yes. Could the life insurance scam be used as more of a deeper part for the spiritual part? But what I'm getting drawn to with the forgiveness is, well, interesting too, but with this, it's to throw you off a balance, right? You know what I love about this deck and with this card? It's the checkerboard, it's the chessboard, it's the way that we move around, but it's also it's more of the spiritual aspect of it. It's the heart and the feather, and for your heart to come back lighter than a feather, everything has to be in alignment, with love. It's your thoughts, it's your words, it's your actions, it's your intentions, it's everything, all in alignment and out of a place of love. And so what holds us back? Not forgiving people. What is that? It's weights that get added onto our heart that weigh the scales down. So now our heart is not equal to a feather, and is not lighter than a feather. And so if we look at it as more of a deeper level. But I pulled out this one because I was curious about what it looked like in the other decks, right? But in this other deck, he has the scales, right? But look, notice the sword too, though. The sword's up, like it's ready, like it's fighting, like it's still fighting the battle, like it's still trying to figure it out, like it's still ongoing, right? But then also notice the scales too. It's you don't see anything on it. There's nothing there, But it's the tipping of the scales would want you to tip your own scale. Would want to get you to fuck yourself out of your own blessings. And how do you do that? By holding on to, by not releasing, by holding on to things, by you know sometimes we It's action. I'm being led to say taking action, but it's sometimes we don't have all the information yet. We need to wait sometimes, but it's also alignment. It's also the alignment. But trying to throw you out of alignment, trying to throw you out of balance by interesting, but not wanting you to be able to find peace and harmony within. But the peace and harmony, what is the peace and harmony? The peace and harmony is, but it's to ascend. It's to throw your scales off so you don't ascend. But notice how the sword's down. It's a place of authority. It's no more questioning, and that's what I get with it up in the air. Interesting, up in the air. But still, like, you're fighting and ongoing. But it's, the battle could be over, but are we still dwelling on it? It's trying to make things make sense, trying to see justice. We don't always see justice, but it's feeling the need that we have to see it with our own eyes. That throws a weight onto our heart. That throws a weight onto that scale. It's releasing. But it's interesting too. But it's but it's the institutions, it's the programming, it's but interesting too. It looks like a game at his feet, like they're playing a game. It's like the Jack game or the what is that game? But forgiveness. My eyes were drawn to the keys. Forgiveness is the key. Notice the stop. I can't ignore that either. But it's the duality. It's the understanding the purpose of the lessons that were taught. But grounded. It's just staying grounded. Staying grounded in harmony. Staying grounded in peace. It's not allowing others to throw you off. But holding resentment and anger, it's hard to say without knowing the full situation either. It's hard to say only going with limited information with what I'm going on. Not knowing you personally, not knowing the whole situation. I can only go with the energy with as it comes out. So it's hard to really, it's hard to really give my full, I feel like I can't even give my 2 cents. It's because I, but I can't ignore the yin and yang necklace on her. Can't ignore that, but it's balance. Energy, Pentacles energy, it's balancing our energies. But it's they want you, but it's getting you to engage energetically, is wanting you to continue pouring out of your cup. Your emotions just keep pouring into. But 9:33. 33 is knowledge, wisdom. Time's running up. I only got 20 more seconds on here. But 2. Choices, decisions. Full circle. It's back up to us. Whether we stay in the mindsets or we choose to move forward. Looking at things from a different angle. Not holding resentment, but learning the lesson. Finding the lesson.